The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the desolate landscape. I had been driving for hours, my car's headlights piercing through the growing darkness, when I stumbled upon the ghost town of Eldridge Hollow. It was a place forgotten by time, where nature had reclaimed its territory, and the remnants of human life stood in eerie silence. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness, as if the very ground held its breath. As I parked my car on the cracked asphalt of what used to be a bustling main street, I felt a chill run down my spine. The buildings loomed like silent sentinels, their windows dark and hollow. A faded sign creaked in the wind. "Welcome to Eldridge Hollow. Population 0." I chuckled nervously. It seemed like a scene straight out of a horror movie. Yet I was too exhausted to turn back now. The night was closing in fast and I needed shelter. I stepped out of my car, the gravel crunching beneath my boots. The sky was an inky black canvas, dotted with stars that twinkled like distant memories. As I walked deeper into the town, my flashlight beam danced across the crumbling facades of old shops and houses. A part of me felt drawn to this place, as if it whispered secrets meant only for me. My first stop was an old inn that stood at the end of the street. The sign above the door swung gently in the breeze, its letters barely legible. The Eldridge Inn. Pushing open the heavy door, I was greeted by a musty smell and an atmosphere thick with dust. The lobby was adorned with faded wallpaper and antique furniture covered in white sheets, giving it an air of abandonment. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing off the walls. No response came, but the soft rustle of leaves outside. I stepped further inside, feeling a strange mix of curiosity and trepidation. The inn looked as if it had been frozen in time, a forgotten relic waiting for someone to breathe life back into it. As I explored, I found an old register on the front desk. Flipping through its yellowed pages, I noticed entries from decades ago. Families who had come for vacations, couples seeking romance, travelers passing through. Each name felt like a ghostly echo of lives once lived here. My fingers brushed against a particularly ornate entry. "The Harrington family, July 12th, 1953. It sent shivers down my spine. Suddenly, a noise broke my reverie. A soft thud from upstairs. My heart raced as I glanced toward the staircase that spiraled into darkness. Should I investigate? The logical part of me screamed to leave this place behind, but curiosity tugged at my mind like a moth drawn to flame. With hesitant steps, I ascended the creaking stairs. Each step seemed to awaken memories long buried within these walls. As I reached the second floor, I noticed doors lining both sides of a narrow hallway. They were closed tight, as if guarding their secrets. I approached one door at random and pushed it open slowly. Inside was a dusty room with an old bed, covered in sheets that looked like they hadn't been touched in years. A small window allowed moonlight to spill into the space, illuminating dust particles dancing in the air. It felt strangely inviting, despite its disrepair. I decided this would be my sanctuary for the night. After settling in and unpacking my essentials, I lay back on the bed, letting out a sigh of relief. The exhaustion from my journey washed over me like a warm blanket, but as sleep began to pull me under its spell, an unsettling thought crept into my mind. What had happened to this town? Why did it feel so alive despite its emptiness? As darkness enveloped Eldridge Hollow, outside my window, I heard another sound, a distant whisper that seemed to echo through the walls. It sent chills racing down my spine again. Was it just my imagination playing tricks on me? Or was there something more sinister lurking within these abandoned halls? I tried to shake off the feeling and closed my eyes tightly, willing myself to sleep. But sleep would not come easily that night. Shadows danced just beyond my eyelids, as if taunting me with their presence. Hours passed slowly until finally, fatigue took hold. Just before drifting off completely, I thought I heard footsteps, soft yet deliberate, echoing from somewhere deep within the inn's bowels. My heart raced as adrenaline coursed through me once more. Who or what was wandering this forsaken place? As sleep finally claimed me under its heavy weight, one last thought flickered through my mind. What awaited me when night fell fully upon Eldridge Hollow? This segment sets up an intriguing premise filled with suspense and mystery while establishing an eerie atmosphere that will draw viewers into your horror story video. The night wrapped around me like a suffocating shroud, and I drifted in and out of sleep, each time jolted awake by the faintest sounds echoing through the inn. The creaking of floorboards, the rustle of something brushing against the walls. It all felt too alive for a place abandoned for decades. I pulled the thin blanket tighter around me, trying to convince myself it was just my imagination playing tricks. But then, just as I was about to succumb to a deeper sleep, a loud bang reverberated through the inn. My heart raced as I shot upright in bed, adrenaline flooding my veins. I strained my ears, listening intently. The noise had come from downstairs, definitely not my imagination this time. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, my feet touching the cold wooden floor. The chill seeped into my bones as I stood there, heart pounding in my chest. Should I investigate? The rational part of me screamed to stay put, but curiosity gnawed at me like an insatiable beast. With a deep breath, I grabbed my flashlight and quietly made my way to the door. As I stepped into the dimly lit hallway, shadows loomed larger than life. The moonlight filtered through the grimy windows, casting eerie shapes that danced along the walls. Each step felt heavy with anticipation as I descended the creaky staircase. The air grew colder with every step I took, and an unsettling feeling settled in my stomach. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, I paused to listen again. Silence enveloped me like a thick fog, making every creak of wood sound like a whispered warning. Mustering all my courage, I moved toward the lobby where I had first entered. The front door stood slightly ajar, swaying gently as if inviting me outside. A gust of wind rushed past me, carrying with it a faint whisper that sent chills down my spine. "Help us," it seemed to say, though I could not tell if it was real or merely a figment of my imagination. I hesitated at the threshold, torn between stepping into the unknown and retreating back to the safety of my room. But something compelled me forward. Perhaps it was sheer curiosity, or perhaps a deeper instinct that urged me to uncover whatever secrets lay hidden in Eldridge Hollow. Stepping outside, I was greeted by an otherworldly stillness. The moon hung high in the sky, illuminating the ghost town with an ethereal glow. Shadows stretched across the ground like dark fingers reaching for me. As I walked further into the street, I felt as if I were being watched, not by any living being, but by something far more sinister. I turned toward what appeared to be an old general store on my left. Its windows were shattered and its door hung loosely on its hinges. A sense of dread washed over me as I approached. This place felt like it held stories waiting to be told. Stories of despair and loss. Pushing open the door with a loud creak, I stepped inside. Dust motes floated in the air like tiny spirits trapped in time. Shelves lined with decaying goods loomed overhead. Canned food long expired and faded boxes that once held treasures, now reduced to mere relics of forgotten lives. As I explored further into the store, something caught my eye. A small mirror hanging crookedly on one wall. As I approached it, an inexplicable urge drew me closer. The glass was clouded with grime, but still reflected enough light for me to see my own face staring back at me, pale and wide-eyed. Suddenly a flicker caught my attention from behind me, a shadow darting across the far wall. My heart raced as I spun around, flashlight beam slicing through darkness but revealing only empty shelves and silence. "Hello?" My voice trembled as it echoed back at me. But no answer came. Only silence, and that lingering feeling of being watched intensified. Just then, a whisper brushed against my ear like cold breath. "Leave, while you can." I stumbled back against a shelf filled with dusty jars that rattled ominously at my sudden movement. Panic surged within me. This wasn't just some harmless ghost town. It was alive with something malevolent, lurking just beneath its surface. I turned to leave, but found myself hesitating at the threshold once more. Something compelled me to stay, to uncover what lay hidden in this forsaken place. With trembling hands gripping my flashlight tightly, I made my way back outside into the moonlit street. As I stepped back into the cool night air, a sense of urgency washed over me. The shadows seemed thicker now. They pulsed and writhed, as if animated by some unseen force. My instincts screamed at me to run, to escape this place while there was still time, but curiosity held me captive. I wandered deeper into Eldridge Hollow's streets, drawn toward an old church that loomed at the end of a narrow lane. A structure that seemed untouched by time, yet steeped in sorrow. Its steeple reached toward the heavens like a finger pointing out sins long forgotten. Pushing open its heavy wooden doors, I stepped inside and was immediately enveloped by darkness. The faint scent of mildew hung in the air as dust particles danced in what little light filtered through stained glass windows, depicting scenes of hope long extinguished. As I ventured further into the sacred space, turned tomb, an overwhelming sense of despair washed over me. A feeling that echoed through every crevice of this forsaken town. It was here that whispers grew louder, voices overlapping one another in frantic urgency. "Help us. Save us. Don't leave." My heart raced as panic threatened to consume me whole. These were not just echoes. They were cries for help from souls trapped within Eldridge Hollow's grasp. Suddenly aware of how truly alone I was, amidst their tormenting pleas, fear clawed at my throat. Just then, a loud crash echoed from behind me. The heavy door slammed shut with a resounding thud. My breath caught in my throat as darkness enveloped me entirely. Only shadows remained dancing along the walls like phantoms celebrating their freedom. In that moment of suffocating darkness and despair, one thought pierced through. What had awakened in Eldridge Hollow? And would it allow me to leave before it claimed another soul? This segment builds on tension and mystery while introducing supernatural elements that deepen the story's intrigue. The heavy wooden doors of the church slammed shut behind me, plunging me into a suffocating darkness. Panic surged through my veins as I fumbled for my flashlight, its beam cutting through the blackness like a lifeline. The whispers intensified, swirling around me like a tempest of despair, each voice distinct yet overlapping in a cacophony of sorrow. "Help us! Save us!" they cried, echoing in my ears. I pressed my back against the cold stone wall, heart racing, trying to steady my breath. The air felt charged with an energy I couldn't comprehend, an unsettling mix of fear and desperation that seeped into my bones. With trembling hands, I turned the flashlight toward the altar at the front of the church. The beam illuminated dusty pews and a crumbling pulpit. But what caught my eye was a large, ornate painting hanging behind the altar. It depicted a scene of worshippers gathered in prayer, their faces serene yet hauntingly gaunt. Above them loomed a figure, shrouded in shadow, a dark silhouette that seemed to watch over them with an unsettling gaze. As I stepped closer, I noticed something strange about the painting. The eyes of the figure seemed to follow me, glinting with a malevolence that sent chills down my spine. I shook my head, trying to dispel the creeping dread settling over me. This was just an old painting. Surely it couldn't be alive. But as I stood there, transfixed by its gaze, I felt an inexplicable pull toward it, a compulsion to reach out and touch the canvas. My hand hovered inches away when suddenly a loud crash echoed from behind me, jolting me back to reality. I spun around, flashlight beam sweeping across the church's interior. The sound had come from one of the side rooms, a small door partially ajar at the back of the sanctuary. My heart raced as I approached it cautiously, each step echoing in the stillness. The whispers grew louder again, urging me forward. "In there? Find us." With a deep breath, I pushed open the door and stepped inside. The room was small and cluttered with forgotten relics. Old hymnals stacked haphazardly on dusty shelves, cobwebs draping over everything like veils of mourning. In one corner stood an ancient-looking chest covered in dust and grime. As I approached it, I noticed strange symbols carved into its surface, runes that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. My fingers brushed against them hesitantly. They felt warm beneath my touch. What lay inside? Was it a treasure or something far more sinister? With trembling hands, I lifted the lid. It creaked open slowly, revealing its contents. Yellowed papers and brittle photographs stacked haphazardly inside. My heart raced as I sifted through them, uncovering fragments of Eldridge Hollow's dark past. The photographs depicted families, smiling faces frozen in time, standing outside their homes or gathered for picnics in what appeared to be happier days. But as I dug deeper into the chest's contents, a chilling realization dawned upon me. Each photograph had an accompanying newspaper clipping detailing tragic events, the disappearance of children, unexplained deaths, and mysterious fires that consumed homes overnight. One article caught my eye. Eldridge Hollow, a town haunted by tragedy. It spoke of a dark ritual performed by townsfolk desperate to save their loved ones from an unseen evil that had plagued them for generations. The final paragraph sent shivers down my spine. It is said that those who partake in this ritual may awaken something far worse than they could ever imagine. I dropped the papers back into the chest as if they burned my fingers. The whispers grew frantic now, pleading voices urging me to leave before it was too late. But before I could turn away, something glimmered at the bottom of the chest, a small locket entwined with delicate chains. Curiosity got the better of me once again. I reached down and picked it up. The locket felt strangely warm against my palm, as if it held some kind of life force within it. Carefully opening it revealed two tiny portraits. One of a woman with kind eyes, and another of a young girl whose face mirrored her mother's features perfectly. I felt an overwhelming sense of loss wash over me. These were not just strangers. They were part of Eldridge Hollow's tragic history. As if sensing my thoughts, the whispers grew louder once more. Find us. Remember us. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from outside. The sound of something heavy hitting the ground, followed by silence. My heart raced again. Fear gripped me tightly as I realized that whatever haunted this town was no longer content to remain hidden. I shoved the locket into my pocket and hurried back toward the main sanctuary just as another crash reverberated through the building, this time closer than before. The shadows danced wildly along the walls, as if alive with malevolent energy. I stepped out into the main hall only to find it empty, eerily so, as if everyone had vanished into thin air. But then I noticed something moving outside through one of the stained glass windows, a figure darting between trees just beyond the church grounds. My instinct screamed at me to flee, to escape this place while I still could. But curiosity held me captive once more. Who was out there? Were they alive, or another lost soul trapped in Eldridge Hollow? I took a tentative step toward the door, when suddenly it burst open with force. A gust of wind rushed inside, like a living thing, extinguishing my flashlight's beam and plunging me into darkness once more. Leave! A voice boomed from somewhere within that darkness. A voice filled with rage and desperation that sent shockwaves through me. I stumbled backward in terror as shadows coalesced around me. Dark shapes swirling like smoke, coming alive before my very eyes. They twisted and turned into grotesque forms that reached for me with elongated fingers. "Help us!" they cried in unison. A chorus of tortured souls begging for release from their eternal torment. With adrenaline surging through me like wildfire, I turned and ran blindly toward the exit, the whispers now rising to a deafening crescendo behind me. As I burst through the doors into moonlit night air once more, I gasped for breath. Fear clawed at my throat as realization hit hard. Whatever haunted Eldridge Hollow was awakening, and it would not rest until it claimed another soul. This segment deepens your story by revealing important backstory elements while heightening suspense and tension. I stumbled out of the church, my heart pounding in my chest like a war drum. The night air was thick with an oppressive silence, broken only by the distant rustle of leaves and my ragged breaths. I cast a frantic glance back at the church, its dark silhouette looming ominously against the moonlit sky. The shadows had come alive, and I could feel their presence pressing in around me, hungry and relentless. Desperate to escape, I sprinted down the street, my footsteps echoing against the cracked pavement. The whispers followed me, a haunting chorus that seemed to rise from the very ground beneath my feet. "Help us! Save us!" they cried, their voices a blend of sorrow and desperation that twisted my stomach into knots. I needed to find a way out of Eldridge Hollow, a path that would lead me back to safety. But as I ran, I realized with growing dread that the town felt different now. It was as if it had shifted overnight, becoming a labyrinth of shadows and despair. The buildings loomed closer together, their windows like dark eyes watching my every move. I turned sharply down a narrow alleyway between two dilapidated houses, hoping to find another way out. The alley was choked with overgrown weeds and debris, but I pressed on, feeling a sense of urgency coursing through me. Just as I reached the end of the alley, something caught my eye. A flickering light emanating from an old well at the far end. Drawn to it like a moth to a flame, I approached cautiously. The well was ancient, its stones slick with moss and decay. As I peered over the edge, I saw not water, but an eerie glow pulsating from deep within its depths. It beckoned me closer, whispering promises of answers and revelations. Look deeper. A voice urged from within the well. A voice that sounded eerily familiar, yet distant. My heart raced as I leaned further over the edge, trying to catch a glimpse of whatever lay below. But before I could make sense of it, a sudden gust of wind swept through the alleyway, extinguishing the light and plunging me into darkness once more. I stumbled back in terror, nearly losing my balance as panic surged within me. The whispers grew louder now, frantic and desperate, echoing off the walls of the alley. You must remember. You must help us. No, I shouted into the void, shaking my head violently. I can't help you. I don't even know who you are. But deep down, I felt a flicker of recognition. A connection to these lost souls trapped in this cursed town. They were not just voices. They were echoes of lives once lived. Families torn apart by tragedy and despair. With renewed determination, I turned away from the well and retraced my steps back toward the main street. As I emerged into the moonlight again, something shifted in my peripheral vision. A shadow darting between two buildings. My instinct screamed at me to run, but curiosity held me captive once more. Who's there? I called out into the night, my voice trembling slightly. Show yourself. For a moment, silence enveloped me before a figure stepped into view. A young girl with long dark hair and wide eyes filled with fear. She looked no older than 10 years old, her dress tattered and dirty, as if she'd been wandering these streets for ages. Please, you have to help us, she pleaded, her voice barely above a whisper. My heart sank at her words. She looked so fragile and lost amidst this desolation. What happened to you? I asked gently, kneeling down so we were eye level. They took us, she replied, tears glistening in her eyes. The shadows, they took everyone. Who are you? I pressed on, desperate for answers. I'm Lily, she said softly. I used to live here. Before everything changed. Before everything changed? My mind raced as fragments of information began to connect. The photographs in the chest at the church. Families torn apart by tragedy. Whispers echoing through time. Lily, are you one of those who disappeared? She nodded slowly, her expression filled with sorrow. We all thought we could save them. But we awakened something terrible instead. What do you mean? I asked urgently. The townspeople tried to perform a ritual, she explained hesitantly, to protect us from an evil that lurked in the shadows. But it went wrong. Now we're trapped here, lost between worlds. A chill ran down my spine as her words sank in. This was not just about one family or one tragedy. It was about an entire town consumed by darkness and despair. We need to stop it, I said firmly. How can we break this curse? Lily's eyes widened with fear as she glanced around nervously. You have to find the source, the heart of Eldritch Hollow. It's hidden deep within, where they first performed the ritual. Where is it? I asked urgently. She pointed down another narrow street lined with crumbling houses, that seemed to lean toward each other conspiratorially. Follow me, she urged before darting off into the shadows. I hesitated for only a moment before following her lead. Every instinct told me this was my chance to uncover the truth behind Eldridge Hollow's dark history, and perhaps save not only myself, but all those lost souls trapped within its grasp. As we ran deeper into the town's heart, shadows danced around us, twisting and writhing like living things, eager to ensnare us in their grip. The whispers grew louder still. Help us. Remember. Lily led me through winding streets until we reached an old cemetery, the final resting place for many who had once called Eldridge Hollow home. Tombstones jutted out from overgrown grass like jagged teeth in a gaping maw. There, Lily pointed toward an ancient oak tree at the far end of the cemetery. The gnarled branches reaching skyward like skeletal fingers, grasping for salvation. That's where it happened, she said breathlessly as we approached. As we neared the tree's base, something caught my eye. A circle, etched into the ground, surrounded by stones arranged in a crude pattern. My heart raced. This had to be where they performed their ritual, the heart of Eldridge Hollow itself. This is it, I whispered in awe and fear, mingled together as memories flooded back, the faces from photographs, families gathered together in hope, children laughing before darkness fell upon them all. Can you feel it? Lily asked softly beside me. I nodded slowly. An energy pulsed beneath our feet, dark, yet strangely compelling, as if beckoning us closer still. We have to break it, she urged urgently now, before it consumes everything. With determination coursing through me like wildfire, igniting every nerve ending alive within my body. I stepped forward into that circle, drawn upon earth beneath ancient oak tree, and felt something shift deep within myself. A connection forged across time itself, binding us together against encroaching shadows, threatening our very existence. Help us! Echoed voices surged around us once more. But this time, they were not just whispers. They were cries filled with hope, mingled alongside despair, urging forth strength rising up against encroaching darkness threatening all life. And so began our fight against shadows, come alive, against forces unseen lurking just beyond reach, waiting patiently for next victim fall prey into their grasp. This segment heightens tension while revealing critical backstory elements and setting up an impending confrontation with dark forces. As I stood within the circle, etched into the ground, a surge of energy pulsed through me, intertwining with Lily's presence beside me. The air thickened, charged with an electric tension that crackled like static. The whispers surrounding us transformed into a chorus of anguished cries, lost souls desperate for liberation from their eternal torment. Together, I said, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. We can break this curse. We need to focus on the light, the hope that once existed in this town. Lily nodded, her eyes wide with determination. Yes, we have to remember who we were before the darkness took over. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath as I reached for that flicker of hope within me. Memories flooded my mind, images of laughter, joy, and love shared among families in Eldridge Hollow before tragedy struck. I envisioned those moments vividly, allowing them to fill me with warmth and strength. Think of your family, I urged Lily. Think of all those who loved you. She nodded again, tears glistening in her eyes as she focused on her memories. The sound of her mother's laughter, the warmth of her father's embrace, the innocence of childhood games played in sunlight. The energy around us intensified, swirling like a tempest as we channeled our collective memories into a single thought: freedom. Suddenly, the ground beneath us trembled violently as shadows writhed and twisted like angry serpents. Dark tendrils reached out from the depths of the earth, clawing at us in an attempt to pull us back into despair. No! I shouted defiantly, pushing against the darkness with all my might. Remember! Lily cried out, her voice rising above the cacophony of despair. Remember who we are! With that rallying cry echoing in my ears, I opened my eyes and looked towards the ancient oak tree towering above us. Its gnarled branches swayed as if caught in a storm. Leaves rustled ominously, while shadows danced around its trunk like restless spirits yearning for release. Together! I shouted again, feeling an overwhelming rush of power surge through me as I grasped Lily's hand tightly. We stood united against the encroaching darkness, two souls intertwined by fate and bound by shared suffering. As we focused our energy on breaking free from this curse, something shifted within me, a realization that we were not alone in this fight. The whispers transformed once more, no longer cries of despair, but a harmonious blend of voices joining ours. Help us. Remember us. They sang softly now, a melody woven from countless lives intertwined throughout history. The shadows recoiled momentarily at our combined strength. They twisted and writhed, but could not penetrate our resolve. We were determined to reclaim what had been lost, to restore hope to Eldridge Hollow. With every ounce of strength within me, I summoned forth memories of laughter shared beneath summer skies, children playing hide and seek among blooming flowers, families gathering round dinner tables filled with love and warmth. Each memory ignited a spark within me, a beacon guiding lost souls toward freedom. Let them go, I commanded fiercely as light erupted from our circle, a brilliant radiance that pushed back against encroaching darkness threatening to swallow us whole. The shadows screeched in fury as they were forced back, tendrils recoiling like burnt vines retreating from fire. The energy surged higher still, flames of hope igniting across Eldridge Hollow as light pierced through every crevice and corner once shrouded in darkness. Suddenly, a blinding flash enveloped us, an explosion of light that illuminated everything around us. I shielded my eyes instinctively, but felt warmth wash over me, a comforting embrace that filled every inch of my being with peace.